Morning, everybody. Question came up about projections. What's supposed to happen and why do we do it? So, first thing, when we're animating, we can't actually animate something that's, in the millions of polygons. So in this case, we've got something that's, and let me just circle this so we can see it. 279,000, just for the face, right? So no body or anything like that. That's a lot. So that's not something that can be animated in Maya. Our entire character with everything shouldn't be more than, say, 30,000 polys. That number could go up as computers get better, but if you want to animate something in real time without hiding things, we're dealing with around 30,000 polys. So how do we get something that's animatable? Well, we would retopo this, and then we would bring it back into ZBrush and then project the details from our high res onto a version that's been retopoed. The reason why we want to do that is because we want the details still, and we get those details in the form of a displacement map that we can apply later. So we're animating our retopoed low res, but I was doing an autosave. We're animating our retopo low res, and at render time, it's going to look like our high res because of our maps we're going to use. So I didn't retopo. This is just a quick sculpt I just did right before the recording, but I have a low res version here, right? So we can kind of see the difference between the two. So I'm just going to solo this. So we have our high res. You can see that it's just very dense geometry. And then we have our low res. And at the moment, this wasn't retopoed, but just as an example for this, we have our low res. And we want the details from the high res onto this version, right? So let me just turn solo off. So in the video, what I suggested doing is starting with our lowest resolution, applying the projection, and then working up through our through the subdivisions that we might have added. Now, at the moment, if I look at my low res here, and I'm just going to solo it, that's this button down here, just so we're isolating it. It's pretty low res, right? We're only at 102,000 polygons. And again, this is the area we want to look at when we're subdividing, right? So right now we're at 102, just 102 polygons. So if I hit Control D, there we go, it's going to add more subdivision. So the wireframe, our low-res wireframe is always going to be represented, but you can see it's been divided now. Each one of these initial polygons has 4 polygons inside it here, right? You can kind of see that. And you can also see up here that this number's changed, right? Now we're at 762. So if I subdivide it again, now we're at 3,000, right? So again, this is the number we're looking at over here. So remember that this guy here is 279,000. I'm just waking up and having my coffee. 279,000 polys. So when we're subdividing our retopoed version, right now we're at 3,000. We want to get close to whatever our model subdivision is. That way we can ensure that we're going to get all the initial details that we had sculpted, right? So I'm going to hit Control D. So at 12,000. Control D, we're at 48,000. Control D, we're at 194,000. And now we're over what we had originally, but I don't need to go any higher than that. So you can see clearly that we're at 770 some odd thousand polygons at this point. Now, all we've done is subdivide this. So you can see there's no detail on here other than the fact that we have a lot more polygons on here, right? And we wouldn't really even be able to see them unless we zoom in really close. But even then, we're not really going to be able to see all those extra polygons, right? When I'm moving around, you can kind of see an indication of them there, but we're not really going to see them. We just know that it's a lot denser, it's a lot smoother. So to project details, you could technically just take, let me turn solo off. You could technically and where did our original one go? Oh, we're on the back, that's why. I was like, because it's just a sphere, and so that's why it looks like a sphere on the back. we could technically just take our high res, go on our low res, and then project the details, right? So if I project the details, now it'll probably work just because I sculpted it out of a sphere. There aren't really a lot of major plane changes. So let's check this out. So project all, right? And you can see that it kind of works, but it kind of doesn't work at the same time. I've got solo mode on here. And the reason for that is that there's a big difference between the surface of the original sphere and the surface of the sphere of the sculpt that I just did. So if I turn on transparency mode, you can see that, you know, there's quite a difference in height between the two. So that's where this distance feature comes in. So if I increase this distance, let's just go all the way up to 1 and project all. Right, you can see that now it's kind of snapped to the outer surface. So if I just focus in strictly on this, for the most part, the details are there, right? It kind of worked, just doing one level. Now, in the video, though, I did it in stages. I started at the lowest level, and I projected on each of the subdivision levels that I've just added. And the reason why we want to do that is that we're not just using spheres. We usually have fairly customized topology that we've recreated with Quadra in Maya. So it can be a little hit or miss sometimes if we just use the projection. Sometimes it just works, and sometimes it doesn't. So to be a bit more accurate, we want to kind of nudge up the details. So I'm going to undo what I just did here. So undo. And I'm going to go down to our lowest subdivision level. And just so we can see what's happening, I'm going to go into split view. Now, split view is similar to Maya. So I have a version of Maya open here, right? So we have two objects on top in Maya. And as you are aware, I can isolate an object, right? I can select it, hit Control 1, right? Both objects are still there. It's just that we're focused on just the one object. Or, you know, I can go into another window and I can Control 1 that. So even though both objects are still here, we're just seeing the individual objects in their own windows. So ZBrush has something similar to that. That makes it a little bit easier sometimes to see what's happening. It's here under the transform window. And it's this guy here called split view. Now, solo needs to be off in order to access this. So split view. And I'm just going to turn it on to split 1. Right, so now I can see both objects. They're still on top of each other, but it's isolating them in these two cameras. So on this side, we're seeing this subtool, which is the original head. On this side, we're seeing the low res, which is the one I have selected because the polyframes are on, makes it easy to see if it's selected or not, right? If I can alt-click on this guy, you can see this one's selected. If I alt-click, well, if I click on this guy, this one is selected. All right, we can always turn that off again. Remember, it's under transform. Just go back to 0, and then it's off. But I want it on just so we can see what's happening. So in the video, what I was doing, so don't forget, we have all of our subdivision levels already on here, right? D goes up through the subdivision levels. Shift D goes down through the subdivision levels. And we're projecting on each one of these, one at a time. So I'm going to go project all. And if you've only done it on the first subdivision level, well, then nothing's going to look like it changes, right? Because it's very, very minor, right? All it's doing is it's slowly starting to push things out towards the surface of the high res. If I hit D again and go project all, right? We're starting to see a little bit more details as there's more polygons, right? But it doesn't really look like too much has changed. If I hit D again, project all. So we're slowly getting things projected out. So D, project all. D, project all, and then we're just going to keep doing this until we get all the way back up to our maximum, which is the 700,000 polygons. Project all. So I'm going to turn off my split view just so we can, well, you know what, let's just zoom in. Now, this has actually given us a much better result. I don't know if you remember the first time I did it, but there was a lot of stretching in through here, especially in through the eye. So it's respecting the curvature quite a bit more, the way that we've projected it this time. So it does give us a better result. So that's why we do it, right? So we can get a better result, a more accurate result. And now we have our levels that we can go up and down through. And then eventually we'll be able to get our displacement maps and our different maps and bring them into Maya, which we'll be covering on Wednesday. Okay, well, hopefully that helps. And let me just turn off my split view. And let's hide the original. And now we have our retopoed version that we can continue to sculpt on if we want to, or change proportions and all that. So I'm going to end the video right here, and hopefully this was helpful. Okay, cheers.